Okay, welcome to the Seeker's Quest. Hi, everyone. We are here for our second session in this series of Disagreements, No Disrespect. So we are talking about conflict, specifically causes of conflict right now, and we'll move on to kind of dealing with conflict and later forgiveness. So I'm here with CC and Veda again. This is great. I get to spend a lot of time with you guys today. We just had a nice little powwow right after the last session where CC and I gave Veda a hard time. So that was fun. Veda, how are you feeling?
I feel thoroughly spiritually loved.
Spiritually loved. That's great. You are spiritually loved. CC and I give Veda a hard time because CC and I are we kind of linear, and CC, we kind of talk about what we're going to talk about before the episode comes, and we try to align, and then we get online, and then Veda just like throws something out at us that's like totally different than the direction we were talking about going, and then we're all like, wait, where are we going? So we love Veda for that, but we do give him a hard time afterwards. So
I think Brittany is having fun that I'm like the kid in the block just throws all the toys all around the place. It's like constantly throwing a tantrum.
Does keep things interesting. We appreciate you for that, Veda.
You know, I know you're young, Veda, but don't flatter yourself to think you are a kid. Yeah. I'd say you are the eccentric in the group, the genius eccentric. So you come up with brilliant points, but
At the wrong time.
and those brilliant points come up, you just are a delightful disruption. At other times, you are just a disruption.
I'll work on the delight side a little bit more.
So, saying with that, we didn't cover all that we wanted to discuss in the last session on causes of conflict. So we were going to move on to addressing the causes of conflict this session, but we just talked and decided to stick with the theme a little bit longer of causes of conflict. So today we're going to talk.
Yeah, we talked about moderating expectations, and we decided to moderate our expectations from Veda. He's very spontaneous. So very spontaneous and more of a heart person. You know, we are more linear, more sequential. So, Veda, we accept you as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thoroughly honored.
It's true. So we're going to talk about differences in perceptions a little bit more today. We talked a lot about expectations the last time. We talked about expectations, difference in expectations, or unrealistic set of expectations, difference in perceptions, and what was the third one that caused conflict? There was three
expression
of them.
Or communication.
Oh, communication. Yeah. So we talked a lot about expectations the last session, and we're going to hone in a little bit more about difference of perceptions for this session.
Yeah. So at one level, even when we see the same object, there is in philosophy and psychology, there is the idea of an object and there is the idea of a subject. So there's the idea of objective reality, and then there is subjective perception of reality. So in the history of mainstream Western world, we could say that objective reality is considered more important in science. It's all about facts. That's why there are repeated experiments, and then we see that whether the same particular result comes out again and again. So the emphasis is on objective reality. At the same time, it's also becoming more and more clear to people, to people in general, both in the scientific world as well as in the general populace, that we are not just objective information processors. We have emotions, we have opinions, we have our own individuality. So in some ways, the subjective is considered lesser than the objective. That at least that's the way it is in science. But if you could say in human life, in our daily relationships, is really, what is the relationship between the subjective and the objective? You consider, especially in art, the subjective is much, much more than objective. That it is somebody sees something and then they render it. Maybe they make a painting about it, they write a poem about it. They are not just reporting it over there, they're actually conveying their emotion, their experience. And that's what moves it much more. So this is also seen in journalism, where maybe after 50 to 70, 80, 100 years ago, journalism was mostly considered to be fact-based. So in writing, there are two genres of writing, broadly speaking. There is fiction and non-fiction. And non-fiction, fiction was the place where it was considered all the creativity comes in. That creativity, imagination, poetry, artistry, that's what comes in. So in the past, journalism was considered to be largely non-fiction. It's about facts, it's about reporting. So you stick to the facts. But now even journalism is becoming more and more about this whole genre of creative non-fiction, where we just don't want reports. We also want the human experience, the human perspective, the human emotions that are associated with something. Yeah, so the subjective element is important. It's what actually, in one sense, makes the experience of life relishable, variegated. And then there are these popular TV series or movies, and people watch the movies, and then there are people who write reviews of the movies. Now, reviews may be a little more objective, but then there are reaction videos. Somebody's watching the video, somebody is, say, watching a latest episode of Star Wars. And while they are watching and they are reacting to that watching, there are people who watch the videos of reactions to this particular fight and reactions to this particular incident. The subjective element is, in that sense, important. So, why I'm making this point is that if we consider if this is the reality, this is what I'm trying to perceive. So you are perceiving from here, say I am perceiving from here. So our perceptions are going to be different. But the point of this, if we have some communication, it's not just to arrive at an agreement. Okay, this is what it is. That's important. But by knowing this is how I see it, so by that, actually we come to know the other person. We come to know, okay, this is where this person comes from. And then sometimes by seeing how the way I see it is different from how somebody else sees it, I come to know more about myself. Oh, this is where I come from. I didn't even think about that. So in that sense, the purpose, when we have these different perceptions, we could say there are different perceptions. The when we're the purpose, or when we're dealing with different perceptions, the purpose is not necessarily just alignment or agreement. Yeah, that when we are dealing with different perceptions, the agreement is one side, but I would say another side is, I like to use the word enrichment. Enrichment means, oh, okay, I understand myself better, I understand you better. My understanding of reality becomes more enhanced. It does not necessarily mean that I'll agree with you. Oh, but this can also be seen in this way. So if we have that understanding, then that doesn't mean that all perceptions are right. Of course not. But that doesn't mean that different perceptions ultimately have to be removed or dissolved so that we can get agreement.
Yeah, it's almost like getting comfortable with the subjective. I remember when I was in high school and I was really into math, I was like I would take a class and my goal would be like not to miss a single point in the math class. And I would stay after class and I would do every single problem in the book. And then I was like friends with the math teacher. So he'd let me go up and like check and see if my answers were right or wrong. And then if they weren't right, I'd go back and I'd like figure out why. And I would spend so much time doing this. Even if he only assigned like 10 problems, I do all of them in the chapter just so I could like see how in line I was with the answer book. And I was almost to the point where like anything that wasn't black or white, I was like not interested in. Like, I don't even want to hear it. Only if there's a right answer am I like motivated. And then I feel like as I got older and after I went through engineering school, and then I started kind of getting more interested in the gray. I got an engineering job. I designed correlations, and that was fun, but I got kind of like bored almost. And I ended up liking working with people more, because people is where the gray is. And it's like, there's so much, it's so interesting working in the gray. It's like you never get bored working in the gray. There's always a challenge working in the gray. And that challenge is really like expanding your own reality, like not so much honing in on your reality and staying like standing strong on it. It's more like expanding your reality. And that is like mind blowing. So I think that's like the first step, is like being comfortable with like maybe letting go of your conception of reality a little bit to allow room for another person's conception of reality. And in that, like you said, is where like the true connection is with a person. So it's interesting.
Yeah, beautifully put. Math is all about black and white. I think Einstein is said to have said many things. Einstein has said. There are many things that Einstein is said to have said. They are attributed to him, but often those precise quotes are not found in his writings, published writings, as they are there. He says that the more a theory is mathematical, the less it describes reality precisely. And the less a theory is mathematically precise, the more it describes reality precisely. Now, that's another way of putting it, is that I think everything that counts is not countable. Everything that is countable doesn't count. So, just a few thoughts on that. Veda.
Yeah. What do you think, Veda? We don't want you to be quiet, Veda. We just want you to conform.
Conform. I know personally, I used to ponder about this thing, the subjective reality and objective reality. And every time I think about it, how simple village people, because, I was from a little remote town, they're so happy with whatever they know, whatever little they know. And their subjective reality is small, and it feels very comforting. And for me, coming out of that little village to see another reality, it completely blew my mind. And it blows my mind every single day. You know, the different realities in this world and also the complexities of the various realities. So yeah, when you talk about this subjective, objective reality, it's somehow when I feel like the little world that I lived in it was very comforting because there wasn't too much. So I feel village life in their little subjective reality is kind of sheltered from the complexities of life.
So you are saying that you're sheltered in village life because everything was black and white, or everything was gray, or why was it comfortable?
Because it's natural.
That's an answer that raises more questions than it answers.
I think he's saying because it's like it's more contained, right? Like when we talk about expanding reality and we bring in different perceptions, it's like with more perceptions, your reality is expanding. But in a small village, it's limited to just the cultural mindset of that small village, and therefore that sets the framework of the reality. Is that what you're saying, Veda?
Yeah, and you know, like most things are somewhat predictable. Like the seasons, the 6 seasons, they all come on time. You know, there's a level of certainty, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like I felt like that growing up in like well, not like that because your experience was so different, but growing up in a small town in Missouri, I felt like perceptions were limited, and frankly, I couldn't wait to get out. But there's something comforting about that too, which I think is why I loved math, because there's something comforting about just being so grounded in your perception and knowing that's right. Because it takes like some courage to step out a little bit and be open to the expansion because it's unknown and it doesn't feel as controllable. It can be scary.
I feel that.
I think,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think Gary Fisher was a chess champion. He said that I love chess because the chessboard is the place where the world makes sense. The rest of the world often it doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's
Was
hard
it
work.
Gary Fisher or Bobby Fisher?
Oh yeah, Bobby Fischer, sorry. So thank you for correcting my subjective perception with your objective reality. Bobby Fischer, yeah. So now when we talk about you brought a good point with our we live in a very complex world nowadays. And it's complex because of multiple reasons. We could go into that, but I'll just quickly mention a few of them. Complexity is at one level because of communication. We get news. I mean, by communication means telecommunication, media. We get news from everywhere. Then there is also migration. People just go into different parts of the world and we mix with people from many, many different backgrounds, regions, religions, ethnicities. We get information from various places. We get people from various places. Then it's also we ourselves have many options. That should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do that? And in some ways, the options are freeing, but some ways they're not. If I'm sick and if I go to a doctor and the doctor tells me, okay, these are your symptoms. So based on these symptoms, you might be having one of these 10 diseases. And for each of these 10 diseases, there are those 10 treatments. Now, out of those 100 options, what do you want to choose? Now, that's not something I can choose, isn't it? So things become just too complex for us. So that's why, in one sense, this complexity leads to greater, I would just use the word neutral word encounter, greater encounter with different perceptions. So in one sense, resolving conflicts, this can lead to greater conflicts because we are encountering people with different perceptions. We didn't encounter too many people with too many different perceptions. The conflict would be lesser. So it's unlikely that the world is going to move backward. Time is not going to flow backwards. That's why it's vital that this encounter is amicable and not acrimonious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do we do that?
Okay, so Veda, did I cut you? Do you want to say something?
No. You can cut in. I'm trying to see where you
Okay. So I hope the difference in our perceptions is amicable and not acrimonious. Okay, so I'd like to talk about. Okay, this doesn't work. Perception in three modes. There are different kinds of perceptions. So there is goodness, which is broadly wisdom or enlightenment. There is passion, rajas, and there is ignorance. So in general, perception in ignorance, this will lead to irresolvable conflicts. Not just irresolvable, but also escalating conflicts. So what happens here is that I take one fragment of reality. I am perceiving one fragment of reality. You are perceiving another fragment of reality. And if I'm in ignorance and if you are in ignorance, then we equate our fragment of reality with all of reality. So this is talked about in 1822 in the Bhagavad Gita. So when we equate our fragment of reality with all of reality, totality of reality, then there is no possibility for reconciliation. There is no possibility for your fragment, your perception to exist at all. So when we take one thing and make it into everything, it can be extremely dangerous. And this is what is increasingly happening nowadays when we have, we have political polarization. So polarization can be because of many various things. But say when there is political polarization, then there are people get caught in their own echo chambers. Now, if I am of a particular political orientation, I read articles on the internet about a particular position, say how immigration is bad. And then I just keep reading more and more about that. And then I may end up start seeing every person who is supporting immigration is my enemy. Every immigrant is my enemy. So when we are in our echo chambers, what happens is that I may say that, okay, I'm not alone. It's like I am listening from other people. But it's like, I am perceiving this fragment of reality, and I only talk with people who are also perceiving that same fragment of reality.
Do you see when you draw?
Yeah.
When you draw reality from now on, can you draw elephants?
Wow.
People appreciate your animal pictures. I've actually got some text about your animal pictures.
Really, they got to laugh at how poor they were.
Yeah. There's not a lot we can poke fun at you for, but your animal pictures is one thing.
Okay, it's an insult to an animal.
I melted at the last.
Okay, it has some tasks.
Okay. This is a great elephant. Yeah, okay, this makes our day.
Okay.
Yeah, so for those of you who didn't hear the last episode, we have the elephant analogy where people are seeing a different part of the elephant, like a leg or a tail, and therefore they're saying that they're perceiving that to be the elephant, and then they're arguing about what an elephant looks like when really they're just seeing different parts. So now we're saying an elephant represents reality, and we're enjoying this picture so much. Thank you.
I don't think that elephant is enjoying it, nor is the elephant maker enjoying it. Okay. Veda, are you a good drawer? I can hand over the screen to you.
I'm horrible at it.
How about you, Radha?
No, I'm bad also. Mine would look like yours.
You know, one thing I was thinking, Sissy, when you were going with this ignorance, go up a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, up a little bit. Yes, perfect. You know, like this mode of ignorance, irresolvable conflicts. I remember when I first came to America, I was trying to understand American culture. And you know, I wasn't on the net or anything, so I was trying to figure out how this culture is all about. So whenever I went to grocery stores, I would buy all the gossip magazines, the People magazine, the Us magazines. You know, like when you're about to check out, they have, just on the eye level, they have all these shelves of the magazines. So I'd buy all those magazines just to understand what's happening in America and American culture and society. It was just celebrity gossips, right? What they did, who they're hooked up with, their breakups. And after, I think, about a month and a half, I learned one thing. There was all this breakups, meet up, breakup, this constant. And one of the common theme of that was irreconcilable differences is the reason for divorce. One reason, one word. I was thinking, oh my God, what is this word? What is this word? And I kept looking up this, you know, this one word. And that mode of ignorance was enough for me to understand that the society that we live in, our role models, the people we look up to, and, you know, the society follows and society listens to and sees there as their leaders are really in the mode of ignorance. Irreconcilable differences, really. Like so much money, so much, you know, fame and everything. Just one word, this mode of ignorance. So that was my realization in understanding the American society in the first month and a half. Just reading the gossip.
Yeah. Now, I was in Canada and I was staying at the house of a couple. So the husband is a businessman. He's a marketing person for a big company, and the wife is an attorney. The husband is also a priest. He does weddings, and his wife is in family law. Family law is basically a polite word for divorce, separation. So she said that so they were joking, saying we are the complete package. You come to the husband to get married, you come to the wife to get separated. So
you should have a discount for that.
Discount. So anyway, he was telling me about some of the reasons why people get separated. So one of the when she said, I want to be separate, I want to separate this. Now it seems the roles are very separate roles are themselves separated. So, for example, in India, now if you go to a lawyer for divorce, the lawyer, if he's a little elderly, is a little like a father figure or a mother figure, they will try to reconcile. They'll try to know what's the issue, maybe you can settle. But it's apparently legally, you are meant to only do your job. There'll be a counselor, separate person. If they want to reconcile, they'll have a counselor. But if they have decided to break, the attorney shouldn't poke their nose and tell them not to break up. So say, okay, what is your reason? He said that, I thought I had met my soulmate, my perfect partner. Then he said that, when we stay together, we just don't agree on what temperature we should keep the AC in the room. And so is that the reason for breaking up? He says, yeah. If he was really my perfect partner, then our bodily temperature should also be sinking. And if they don't sink, that means that we are not perfect partners. So now, making this into an irreconcilable difference, that is a terrible thing. It's a one small thing, but we make it into an entirely big thing. So, yes, go ahead, please.
One thing, when you say that, the small thing making something different, and this can also be something very big made into something very small. Because irreconcilable, one word, describes all the struggles, all the differences, and all the hush-hush money that has to be paid and separated between the two, and all the assets and everything, alimony, this, that. And this is all summarized into this one word during the time of divorce, irreconcilable differences. So making everything in this world, big thing, into this one little thing, because that's what you are explaining, right?
Yeah. So many times,
because
when we choose a particular course of action, we are often not educated or informed about what all will go into that. It's like now in India also there's a proposal to have this, what is in the West called a no-fault divorce. And no, there's no fault with the husband, no fault with the wife, but we just don't want to be together anymore. So this no-fault divorce, depending on the country that a person is in, can actually separate from somebody you have been with for 20, 30 years in less than 3 months. And you don't even need to give an explanation. I just don't want to be with that person. It's easier to sometimes get out of a marriage than it is out of a home rental contract or even a phone carrier contract. But what comes after that can be quite disorienting, distressing, and even devastating at times. So yeah, I think using some words that are deceptive euphemisms, which actually don't convey the grave reality, that could be a problem.
So yeah, this is more of ignorance. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. So we make a small thing into a very big thing. Or rather, make one thing into everything. This difference means it's all over. Not necessarily. So if our perception is in the mode of ignorance, what do? We try to raise our perception. That brings us to perception in the mode of passion, in Rajas. So here, the Bhagavad Gita says that it's the external is equated with the essential. So even among the external, there could be something in ignorance. The difference is it's peripheral, even in the external. So that is equated with the whole. That's ignorance. So there's a difference between the two of them. This is perception and ignorance. As perception in passion is, there is some feature which we consider extremely important. And say it may be the looks of a person, is the income of a person. It could be a particular, particular attribute, whatever it might be. And if that particular attribute is different, then how is it possible for us to be together? So, in one sense, passion and ignorance are similar. But it's also possible in passion, something else may happen. That if at an external level, the two people may be very different, that they may come from many different backgrounds, many different religion, different region, different mindset, but both of them agree that we want to make money. And they join and form a company. They may be very different, but as long as they're making money together, they say, I don't. So in passion, sometimes a passionate purpose can help people to go beyond the differences. So in a cricket team, or you can say in a baseball team, that will actually take us to goodness further, but I'm just doing the transition in between. But in general, when one external feature is equated with an essential feature, that's when we are in the mode of passion. And that's the perception over there.
This is why like relationships centered on Krishna or God are more robust, right? Like, because ultimately if your relationship's centered on Krishna and that's what you're really both going for, you can learn a lot together. Your conception of reality can expand a lot together. And in that way, the relationship can almost be not unshakable, but indestructible, because it's centered on something that is eternal and itself unshakable.
I could say they might be shaking, but there's never any shattering.
Yeah.
The upheavals will be there, but so you can say the relations are robust, and then they don't go bust. So yeah, I think you're taken to a higher level. I think we'll move forward from the passion to the goodness. That's where we are looking at right now.
We're done with passion so quick.
No, you want to add something? We are passionate about passion. So we are rushing through it now.
I feel
if
like
you want to add something, please go ahead.
I feel like the whole world is running on this perception of passion. And not enough is given to the whole world. So I'd like to see if we can give the world a little bit more time. So, in my experience of passion, I deal with a lot of young people. So this one boy comes up to me one day and he said, Veda, my girlfriend, she is the most beautiful girl. And I mean, everything about her is so beautiful. But when she starts talking, I'm just like, oh my God, who is this person? I don't know this person. So he was so obsessed with her external beauty. But whenever they went out and they got to do things together, I mean, he was like, her words are just so cutting, it just pierces through my heart, and she's so insensitive, but she's so beautiful. I just look at her and I forget how insensitive she is. And like this, he's having this big, huge conflict and asking me how to resolve it. And I was just laughing, and he thought I was crazy. And I said, do you ever hear yourself talk? And he goes, yeah. And I just kept thinking, whenever you talk about passion, how we are so focused on the externals in all aspects of life. All aspects of life. We are not really seeking the substance in our relationship to things and relationship to people and relationships to environment, that we are so caught up in what looks good. Everything has to be satisfactory to the senses and nothing deeper. And yet we're seeking something deeper. So this conflict just goes on and on and on. And I feel this is the nature of this world in the mode of passion. Everybody is moving in a direction that is definitely superficial. So I think that was my experience with people's perception in the mode of passion.
Yeah, it's a good point. And there was this, I think last year or this year, there was this movie, Everything, Everywhere, All the Time, the Academy Award winning movie. There's the heroine. She's a middle-aged lady who is disappointed with the way her life has turned out. Her business is not doing well. Her relationship with her husband is not very good. She feels her husband is not very serious. He's nonchalant, and he's always foolishly cheerful. Something like that. And her relationship with her daughter is tense. So then, basically, the plot of the movie is that she starts envisioning multiple realities, multiple universes, where her life has gone on different trajectories. And then, in one of those realities, she finds that same husband is like a powerful martial arts fighter, and she's in trouble. He comes and saves her, and then she's transported back to her real reality, her reality, and then she says to her husband, if only you were more of a fighter, it'd be so nice. And then he says, you think I don't fight? I fight. His life is tough. I fight by being cheerful. So I fight by adding some good cheer to the world. Because ultimately life is so distressful. What can we do except just be a little kind, a little warm to each other? And at that time, it's almost as if she sees her husband for the first time. Says, who is this person? What have I been seeing? So the idea is that sometimes, like, this also goes back to our expectations, but our perceptions are shaped by, in passion, we have certain expectations. So yes, fighting can be by being grim, by being yelling, by being assertive, by being sometimes aggressive, but there are different ways of fighting. So if you consider when the Bhagavad Gita talks about tolerating things, tolerating, it is not fighting, but tolerating is deciding that I will fight by being resilient. I'll fight by enduring. Like, we have to choose our battles. So one of the ways we deal with conflict is by realizing that, maybe this conflict is not worth fighting over. So maybe I'm making this much more of an issue than it needs to be. So the more we have, so this is the difference between, say, passion and goodness. In passion, if we consider this is a reality, and so the passion, the vision will always go towards the appearance of things. In goodness, we will seek the substance of things. So that means one way we move from passion towards goodness is things that I think matter. Are they really the things that matter? So are these two really the same? Or maybe there's a difference between the two of them. So that's where this I think is a part of my perception. This is not to be denied, but it is to be denied monopoly on reality. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is reality. So that's some thought about moving from passion towards goodness.
Before you jump, I had one thought. I was thinking, how when we go to a store, we look at the different shelves and we see something that catches our eye. that the packaging has to look really nice. Whatever we buy, based on the packaging, which is the first metric of our decision-making process, whether to buy this or not. And when I first came to America and went to the grocery store, I had never seen such colorful, glistening, and shining vegetables and fruits in my life. I have never seen such a thing. Because you know how in India, there's dirt still on the, on the vegetables, on the cauliflowers and the apples. They don't have any shine or anything like that. And in America, I was completely shocked. And I asked these people, I said, this must be the best apple in the world. It's shining. It's so, brilliant. And he said, yeah, this is the best fruits in the world. And another friend immediately jumps in. He said, Veda, this is not the best thing in the world. All this on top is just beautiful, colorful wax to make it shine and make it dazzling so people like you can go in and buy them. And I was thinking, wow, really? And ever since then, whenever I buy something in the US, I have a tendency to read the labels. Doesn't matter how good the packaging is. I really want to see the content inside. So this mode of passion, everything on the externals is what is really, really captivating to the world. And I feel we get lost in the glitz and the glamour of what is on the outside. And so this mode of passion is all pervasive in this world.
Yeah.
And
I think just to respond to that point quickly. There are two efforts. One is that on one side, the individual should see beyond the appearance to the substance. That is the endeavor that the individual has to make. But I would say that to some extent to resolve or to reduce conflicts, there's that person has an appearance, and you could say that person has their substance. Now that person also needs to make an effort to manifest their substance sometime. Because if a person is kind, but maybe their voice tends to be loud, maybe they tend to use foul words or whatever, then that's what people are going to say. This person can't be kind. So I think the onus of the responsibility lies on the other person also, rather than expecting that the world should rise from passion to goodness, which we definitely want to, but we also need to recognize that people are going to judge us by appearances, and we also need to make sure that our appearance does not betray our substance. Betray in the sense that misrepresent or completely conceal our substance. In fact, that's going to be what we'll talk in the next session, where we talk about communication and presentation, how to bring what is inside outside. It said that Swami Prabhupada is one of our foremost spiritual teachers. He says, dress and address. He would say, first you need to at least dress in a respectable way. Then the address that you give, the message that you will give, that will be seen with some respect. So I write books, and there's this common saying that don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody judges a book by the cover. So cover page design itself is a huge field of huge profession. So in that sense, that's just the opposite perspective. I'm just giving you a hard time, Veda. You are trying to take us from passion to goodness. I'm taking you from goodness to passion.
I want to pause for another minute and propose this idea to you. You said
Sure.
substance. Can we say essence and substance outside, and essence is the inside? Can we switch? Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, you were saying something, Radha. I just cut you off.
Yeah, I was thinking of this in the context of relationships. If you scroll up to your original where you said where you had the passion and the right there. Passion is focused on the appearance and goodness is focused on what we now just defined as the essence. I was thinking of this book, The 5 Love Languages. Have you guys heard of that by Gary Chapman? So it's based on this philosophy that there's like 5 ways that we all perceive love. It's like quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, and gifts. So when you're in a relationship with somebody, if you don't have the same love language, if you don't perceive love in the same way that they do, you guys could be like misfiring. Like somebody could be trying to show you love, but you're not perceiving it that way. So it's like a tool in relationships to try to get on the same page. Like, for example, for me, like one of my big love languages is just like time and conversation. My husband hates to talk, and he's just like acts of service. Like he's just like constantly wants to do things for me, which I'm like, this is nice, but I just want you to talk to me. So like that's something we had to like get to in our relationship. Like I had to come to understand and appreciate all of the service that he does for me, and he had to kind of try to talk a little bit more and share a little bit more. And in that way, we could see and feel each other's love for each other. But because our perceptions weren't totally aligned, we had to kind of like work a little bit to get there. And so that we are more operating in the mode of goodness. And I'm not just seeing like, oh, he's not sharing with me. We're not connected like that.
Yeah. So I think you are continuing my point that the essence needs to be manifested. So that each person needs to, okay, if there's love in the heart, it needs to be expressed in a way that is perceivable for the other person. And when I also need to adjust so that when somebody is doing something, I need to perceive the love behind that. You know, my dad is like that. He doesn't like to talk at all. Acts of service, he will go to, he's 80, he's 85 now. But say he stays in a city which is about 5 hours away from Pune, from where I stay in Mumbai. If I need some certificate or something at the age of 80, 85, around 75, 80, he will catch a train and come to meet me in Mumbai and he'll give me that thing. But when he comes, he just doesn't want to talk. Just sit, he'll be there for some time and he'll go. So if I have to maintain a conversation with him, I have to keep asking him questions. As soon as I stop asking a question, he stops talking. So that's true.
Yeah. Do you ever ask questions and you just get, yeah? You ask another question. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the answer.
No, I think in trying to get him to answer questions, I started developing the skills of becoming a podcaster. I had to find which questions would get good answers.
I need to develop that skill better, I think.
So I think we had too much goodness to get to goodness now. So should we summarize now or?
Yeah, I think so.
Brittany, high mileage questions. Nice word, Brittany.
Goodness is finished.
High mileage. Goodness. Should I talk about goodness and then we'll complete, or should we keep it for next time?
Goodness.
You can talk about goodness.
Let's speak. So basically, goodness, and sees that when we are talking about this is not a person, but I'm drawing them as a person, that there are differences between us, two people, and there are similarities. And it is not that for this perception to be, for the relationship to be fruitful, in this perception, we see the differences. We acknowledge the differences. We don't deny them. But we also see the underlying commonality, the underlying similarity below the differences. So we see this tendency also. For example, I think Obama in a speech, when his first speech, he says, we are not the red America or we are not the blue America. We are the United States of America. So it's like the idea of unity in diversity. So we have so many differences and we acknowledge those differences. But we see that the similarity, that's not the similarity generally comes from a bigger picture. In the smaller picture, there will be differences. Okay. In the bigger picture, it could be based on nationality. It could be based just on humanity. We are all human beings. And beyond that, it can be based on our spirituality. Now, even when it's based on humanity, we may leave out the non-humans. But if it's based on our spirituality, we understand that the same spiritual spark is there in everyone. So here, while both are acknowledged, both are important, but the idea is that this is, okay, the similarities are foundational. You start with the foundation of similarity, and then after that, the differences are secondary. They are not primary. They could say, we understand that the differences may be important, but still they are circumstantial. That I am a soul and you are a soul. And at the level of a spiritual essence, we are similar. Now, I may be an Indian, you might be an American. I may be a male, you might be a female. These differences are there. We don't deny those differences, but we make sure that we don't let those differences blind us to the similarities. So when we can see these similarities, then there is a foundation. When there is a conflict, even say there is 1% similarity, let's take like a worst case scenario, and there's 99% difference. But still, if we start with that 1% similarity, then we will find that we can move forward. From that 1% similarity, we can move forward and then address the 99% differences. So that's starting with what is similar, starting with what we share, what are our shared values, shared purposes, what is it that we share. We start from there and then we move forward towards resolving and or addressing the differences. That would be perception and goodness.
Yeah, when you talk about this one, I think about religion, like, because it can be so common in religion to say, like, oh, you're not this, like, again, my husband's Catholic. So to focus on like, well, I see God like this, and these are the practices that I do. I see God like this. These are the practices that I do. To focus on those differences really would just create separation. But instead, if you can find where you're similar, where they intersect, and really appreciate that, then even you realize that the differences are actually not even so important.
Exactly. So yes.
I think
true.
I think this differences that can accentuate the beauty of the foundational. So when there's differences, I think it's the beautiful thing that we are so different, and yet we are so similar. So if the foundational is the focus, then the differences are simply an accentuation of that foundational beauty.
So yeah, if you consider difference management, you could have a pendulum. You have two different. If you see no differences, that's artificial. The differences are there. Like some people say, I don't see the skin color. I don't see the color at all. Well, then how do you operate at traffic lights? You cannot not see colors. But we don't equate that with the whole person. So it's see only differences. Then what happens is this you take, more like a artificial unity or artificial you could put artificial unity or harmony. See only differences. It can lead to often unnecessary disharmony, unnecessary disunity. But in between, oh wow, that's nice.
Look at that heart. You got to leave
it. So this is what it's called. I think it's serendipity. Accidentally it came out right.
I know. Look at that.
So we acknowledge the differences, but we subordinate them, or we focus on similarities. Then it's not just that we are tolerating the differences, but we can even celebrate the differences, and that they make the world richer, the differences.
Yeah, go
ahead.
I was just going to say love from the essence.
Yes, not from the essence, true. So we just tolerate and then go beyond tolerate to we celebrate diversity within a foundation of unity. So we could discuss how we could go toward this, especially in terms of how we could communicate. Because at one level, it's the individual's endeavor. I need to rise to goodness. But when we are dealing with each other, let's try to bring our conversation to goodness, so that we will be able to focus on the essential similarities, and then we will look at the subsequent differences thereafter.
Beautiful.
So anything you want to add, or should I conclude? Summarize something?
Summarize, please.
Take us home, CC.
I don't know whether I'm going to take us home or I'm going to take us to the door out of the home, in the sense, the next discussion. Yeah. But we started talking today about perceptions primarily. And in that, we discussed about how objective reality is considered important in science. And that is good. That is good. But along with that, the subjective is also important. And it's important in not just arts, but often in relationships, in real life at large. So from an objective perspective, when we are resolving conflicts, what we need is agreement. That was your understanding, that's my understanding, but now this is the correct understanding. But from the subjective perspective, we look not necessarily for agreement, but for enrichment. So when we are resolving conflict, I can respect that, okay, that's where you come from. You don't have to necessarily come to an agreement. And then in that connection, we discussed multiple examples, but we focus, say, on perception in ignorance. That is, we equate, if I'm looking at one thing, I equate that one thing with everything. And so does the other person, and does what Veda pointed out is we can have irreconcilable differences because we are seeing that particular thing to be the most important thing. And that's quite unfortunate. And we talk about perception in passion. So here, whereas there, one thing is equated to everything, here it's more like an external is equated with the essential. And this is where most of the world is. And we could say that as individuals, to deal with this, we need to make two efforts. One is we see the essential beyond the external when we are looking at others. And then we also show from within, show our essential beyond the external, or not here, or beyond, it would be beneath. Inside us, beneath the external. So we want to give a book of good content, but we also have to design a good cover. So in this connection, we also talked about love languages and how the love languages have to be. We need to express love according to language that the other person will perceive. And they talk about goodness. So here, we acknowledge the differences, but we subordinate. We discuss the pendulum basically. Only similarities if we see, or let's say only differences, then that is unhealthy. Only that will lead to a lot of unnecessary conflict. Only similarities, that will lead to an artificial, unstable unity. But rather, we acknowledge the differences and we focus on the similarities. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.